Yeah. My name's Blue Hessner. This is my first episode of BLUECAST.
BLUECAST.
You like that?
Fucking love it.
It's a good name, right?
Rock on, dude.
So I started this podcast because I have so many smart friends that are in the real estate business, that have been in the business for years and years and years and years, that I was like, I need to start a podcast. Like, one of us needs to start a podcast and start interviewing all my friends, like realtors, title people, other mortgage guys like you. And I felt like this was the most appropriate first person to have on my podcast is you.
Whoa. You're putting it on me. First of all, I was like, why the hell? Oh, you said smart and like all these things. I'm like, how in the hell did we get here?
Well, mostly because, Ian, we started in the business together, right?
I do know that. Yeah.
A long time ago.
That's about 18 years ago.
Yeah, I was thinking about it when I was driving over here this morning because I was like, thinking about all the reasons why I invited you to do the first podcast. And when we started, I couldn't remember exactly when we started. I felt like it was like 2005.
So it was summer of 06.
Summer of 06?
I remember because I closed my business.
I couldn't remember if it was 06 or 05, like the end of 05 or
06.
in the beginning of 06. Okay.
We started hanging out before that.
Okay, so we started in the beginning of 06. Mm-hmm. And I think it's kind of funny that we both jumped in a market that was basically imploding when we started.
Yeah, man. And so first of all, thank you for having me on here.
Of course.
It's a true honor. I'm going to get emotional through this whole thing because you're one of my favorite people.
Yeah.
You have inspired me to do a lot of things in my life, so I appreciate that.
That's awesome.
The short 18 years we've had on this mutual planet together.
Yeah.
With that said, yeah, it's ironic, right? So we both had just come out of self-employment.
Yeah.
And for lack of better words, like pretty irresponsible financially, right? Like,
yes, very. I wouldn't say we were irresponsibly. We were young, and we just were trying to figure out life, and we were exploring the options of things, and we were both like, we've always kind of been hustlers.
Yeah, man.
And we were like,
absolutely.
we were just learning our lessons.
For sure.
At that age.
Yeah, we had a couple chops by then. I mean, the cool thing for me, like, fast forward to where we are now, 18 years later, man, like, I know more. I've probably forgotten more about personal finance than I ever thought I would know getting into the business.
That's fair.
And I feel super blessed. Like, I was joking when I was walking up the stairs. I'm like, how did these two goofy dudes that like had no financial background driving our electric cars and all the crap now? Yeah. How do we get to where we are today?
Well, I feel like, don't you feel like we're both like students of whatever we approach in life?
Oh man, well I think that's one of many commonalities that we have because we couldn't be the more different people.
Yeah.
I mean, you're an ex-professional snowboarder. I remember the first time you called one of your 60-year-old borrowers dude. I was like, can you do that?
I still occasionally call people dude.
Yeah, I know.
It's weird.
And I grew up, growing up back east, I had appreciation for snowboarding, but I was just like wannabe farmer, like struggling blue collar kid, like. And
now you're a real farmer.
Yeah, I mean,
I love the fact that you have like your little farm now.
I appreciate that. Cool. I'm definitely trying. Here's what is common. But here is what's common is when we both started. Yeah. It felt like day one. You were like, "This is what I'm gonna do. This is how I'm gonna do it."
Yeah.
And you've done it, all of it.
Yeah.
And I've gone through a couple more iterations. I think you were a little bit more clear.
Yeah.
I had to go through a couple different masks before I figured out who I really was. But to answer your question, I think students of the game. I think.
I love how you just called it the game.
Well, there's yeah. Well, the life, like the game of life, right? Yeah, like I've got a your kid was older. Like when we started, man, your kids were my kids, younger than my kids now.
Yeah.
And like the game of life, my kids are playing now, by the way, in Monopoly. Yeah. My son is brutal, dude.
I don't think I ever lost a game of Monopoly when I was growing up.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of my bio. Like I like I like Monopoly. I like my doctor's shoes and my lawyer's, like my family's business growing up, his cars. I'm like, well, cool, I'll be a banker.
Yeah. And here you are.
Yeah. But anyway, I digress. I think you and I both share a commonality of growing up in self-employed families. Maybe not the most stable. Like my parents
No?
were an absolute complete shit show. But growing up in retail, I mean, both of us were around a lot of people. Your mom was in the music business and restaurant. I was in, trade shows and retail. But yeah, just constantly learning. I had a lot of chips on my shoulder, not having a degree, not going to college, like all those sort of things. But I think where you and I really connected is that we both knew that we were going to bust our ass and work hard and just like grind a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And get scrappy.
We're
like
grinders.
you're one of the scrappiest fucking dudes I've ever met.
Thank you.
And like,
I think that's a compliment. But yes, thank you.
yeah, no, that's a super compliment. But yeah,
I mean, I think, and we put all these words like grind and, hustle and all that stuff, but it's just like, we're just willing to put the work in, what it comes down to, right?
yeah,
And we both are in a place where we have teams of people.
sure.
And it's like, and I think you do probably a way better job than I do of, teaching how to, teaching the work ethic and like coaching and doing that kind of stuff. I don't think I'm as good of a coach as you are, but I think when it really comes down to it, when push comes to shove, we're the ones that are actually we're going to put work in, right? And we do. I mean, okay. So maybe we don't do it as much now because we're older and we do have teams of people.
Bro,
and
I'm working harder in the last 24 months than I've worked in most
well,
of my
I
career.
mean, that's a good segue into current market conditions, which
Sure.
is another topic I put on the
Yeah.
list. But it's like, of course, when the tough gets going, or when, what does that saying?
Going gets tough.
When the going gets tough, the
something
tough get
helping,
going,
yeah,
or
something like that.
you know what I mean? It's like, of course, like both of us are probably working a little bit harder than we did during like COVID when we were just sitting there answering the phone, right?
Yeah, man, but I think that's just sort of DNA, man. Like,
It's in our DNA.
the reason why Jill and I moved to a rural property is so that I had something other than work to do.
Right.
And I was meeting years ago with the gals that have been with me for 8 years now, and our business coach, our life coach. She's more of like my mental therapy coach.
Right.
And she's like, here's the deal. Like, you keep telling me you have all these like deficiencies in your personal life. Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, it'd be cool if I could like work more. She's like, that doesn't, no. So we decided we're going to have cows and pigs and like all that stuff. And honestly, man, like going back to the teaching thing, like you have amazing kids.
Yeah.
So clearly you're very good at coaching and mentoring and teaching. No, seriously.
Right.
Like a lot of people don't understand, like raising children is like, that's
You're coaching.
Yeah,
You're
that's
coaching.
the 18,
That's
right?
it.
Like,
that's who
that's
you're
your-
coaching your whole life. Yeah.
So when it comes to like loan, like, yeah, man, like I find a lot of significance in my life coaching others, right?
Yeah.
And like, I think I can help everyone. And oftentimes people are like, hey, shut up. I don't care. Like,
Right.
that's the blessing and the curse. Like, the cool thing about Ian is he's got all these great ideas of what you can do. The not so cool thing is he's going to tell you whether you want to know it or not. But I appreciate that. But
Well, that's another, I think, reason that you and I have been friends for a long time, and both fairly successful in this business, is because that we both always have told everybody how it is.
yeah,
You're gonna hear what we have to say, and
Authenticity.
and we're gonna tell you exactly how we feel, and we're not gonna beat around the bush. And I think that's an kind of an attribute to our friendship, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an attribute for people. I remember when I walked in to David Ween's office to get a loan.
Yeah.
And that dude is a master of psychology, right?
Yeah.
Like literally has a master's degree in
Yeah.
psychology.
Yeah.
He was our first guy.
Dude,
Brought
look,
us up.
you want to talk about, that was one of the things I want to touch on when we talk about our history, is that we both worked for David Ween and role models and people that have kind of influenced both of us in our career, whether it be Ariel Solomon or David Ween. And David Ween's definitely one of those. He got us our start in this business and mortgages.
He showed us.
Yeah, and he showed us what to do and how to do it. And he's a master of not only psychology but the mortgage game. Right?
Yeah,
He's
and
really good. Hopefully, maybe I can get him to come on the show.
dude,
sometime.
I guarantee he would.
You think so?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I mean, yes, we got to where we are. And listen, I don't feel like I'm where I'm going. Like,
Yeah.
I've got like when you're like successful, like we're successful in this tiny little business of mortgage banking.
Yeah.
And like everyone's like, oh, I'm a top 1%, blah, blah, blah. Like, who gives a shit? But here's what I do know is I love.
You know who cares is the people that we're making money for.
Yeah. I love what I do. I love being able to really impact people's lives.
Yeah.
More importantly, I love to tell people about my history.
that is one of the things that I have always loved about being in the mortgage business is that we can impact people's lives. We get to solve different problems all the time, which keeps us on our toes. Like, could you imagine having yourself being in a situation where you had to do the same thing over and over every day?
I'm too ADD for that.
Me too. Like, it's impossible for me to do that. I would get so bored and go crazy. There's no way. And the fact that we work in a business that brings different problems to us every day that we have to solve is like the reason why I love this. Right?
100%. And I always liken it to, there's kids in school that could get good grades. By the way, that was not me.
Me either.
And there was kids that could color really well and like
inside the lines. I couldn't color inside the lines.
Not
either.
A chance.
Okay.
However, and I'm absolutely stealing this from a quote from someone who I have a lot of two coaches that I work with that I have a ton of admiration for. But I think the people who color outside the lines are the ones that create some of the most amazing things.
I think that's been proven.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to say like, hey, I color outside the lines and I'm an amazing mortgage banker. That's not what I'm trying to say, but I do think it's really important to recognize and appreciate that my path and your path wasn't exactly like the straight and narrow to get to where we are.
Yeah.
And I do think the unique thing about this conversation is you're talking and listening. We're two people talking to whoever decides to listen about with grit and integrity and authenticity and hard work. And just being yourself, like there's quite a few things you can accomplish.
What do you think? This is kind of off the cuff, but what do you think your biggest two lessons you've learned since you've been in the mortgage business about yourself and about, you know what I mean? Like, what do you think are like the two takeaways? Just because you started talking about, just like growth and
sure,
that kind of stuff. It's like what. I mean, this is a question for myself too, and I just sprung it on you and I sprung it on myself at the same time. But it's like, what do you think your takeaway is at this point in your life of like what you've learned from being in mortgage banking?
So 18 years into it, I think I got at least another 20 to go. I enjoy it 20? That much. Yeah, I enjoy it that much. You know me, man. I'm never going to retire. We talked about it.
I don't think I'm ever going to retire either.
I mean, the two biggest reflections or lessons I would say is bigger is not better, which is hard for me. I'd say the other one is stick to what you know and be true to yourself, authenticity. I think really sticking to knowing and understanding who you are and what you believe in. And holding that integrity for yourself and not trying to do that for someone else.
I agree. Like, it's really been really hard throughout the history of my career to maintain integrity, right? To maintain like integrity and have the respect to let things go when you don't feel right about them or, and you don't feel like it's doing the right thing. And I'm not talking about just like personally, I'm talking about dealing with some clients or dealing with corporate pressure or any of those things. That is like to maintain your own integrity of how you feel about certain things and how you want people to be treated, your clients or whoever, right? Your employees or whatever it is, I think has been one of the huge lessons that I've learned is just and having patience. Right?
Yeah, patience.
Being patient with scenarios, being patient with situations in your life and people, and waiting and not jumping to conclusions or getting upset for how many times in your career have you probably gotten upset about something that didn't really matter, right? Like because you weren't patient enough to see the outcome of what was going to take place.
That happens with maturity.
I guess that does.
Yeah, emotional maturity. Yeah. The integrity thing for me is. It's similar to what you're saying, but I think that I was always trying to hold integrity for someone else. So, like early on in the career, it was like, I'm going to show people I'm trustworthy and I need to tell them.
Yeah.
I already knew I was. Yeah. And then when, our second iteration of we traveled together a little bit, over the years.
Yeah. We should travel again soon. We should we should go on a trip.
But I mean, in our business too, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the second company that we both worked for, it was like, I'm going to be this person and I'm going to show them how great I am. And so they know and they know and they know. Where the whole time it's like, you knew about me, who I was. And you were always great about being like, dude, just be yourself. Yeah. You're so charismatic. All the things that I pride myself on, you saw that early on in me. Yeah. This is a very unique relationship in that way where, so I would say that personal integrity thing for me is absolutely where you're able to say, hey, you know what? You're not a good fit client, or you're not a good fit real estate partner.
Exactly.
Or you're not a good fit company I'm working at. Yeah. You're not bad or good, but there's just not alignment there. And that's something that I focus on in my personal life. And I think that's why I'm so driven to coach and mentor other folks. Like, I was on a coaching call earlier today with some local real estate agents and commercial folks here. And like, my whole thing is like, and I use you as an example.
Great.
I was like, early on, like, Blue was so much scrappier than me, did way more business. You're just always like, you just hustled harder than me.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you gave a shit about what everyone else thought, because you knew you're a good guy and you're going to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Where I was trying to hold that integrity for everyone else, where I was like, oh, let me show you. Yeah. And like, I lost a lot of opportunities.
Right.
With that said, to this day, clients, partners, co-workers, corporate, any of those things, like, I'm very clear on where I stand.
Yeah.
And the CFO of the company that I work with said something to me years ago. He's like, I want you to challenge me, and I want you to do it respectfully.
Right.
But always challenge. And I took that, and I do that in every area of my life now. Yeah. And I think that's what allows me to stay in my integrity, because I can at least like voice my opinion and have to like think about it and be patient.
Yeah, I think it's really important, right? Like, me and my partners are always like the squeaky wheel, right? We're always challenging for that, or we're like, we believe that this is how it should be. We've always, and I personally have never not or done anything, done anything without being like completely on board with how I feel about it. And if if I'm not 100% behind it, I'm not doing it. Just, and if I am 100% behind it, I'm going to go and do it to the fullest. And I'm going to do it 100%, right?
Right, yeah.
And that's another thing I think we share, right?
Yeah, which is not coloring inside the lines.
Not coloring. Right? Back to, it is. It's not coloring inside the lines.
But if you think of it from a common sense standpoint, if you're not able to operate within what you know to be right or wrong, or your boundaries or your guidelines, the more you operate outside those boundaries and outside of those guidelines, the more you're compromising who you are. And eventually there's a couple things that are going to happen. And I think in our industry, in the housing industry in general, but business in general, is you're going to start resenting the people you work with. You're going to start resenting the people that you work for or that are your clients. And eventually you're going to hate your job. Yeah. And I remember earlier on in this career, I was like, I just don't understand how anyone can hate doing this or ever burn out. Yeah. Like, it didn't make sense to me. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, we make
because it's not the actual work because you go into it thinking the work's going to burn you out. But that's not what burns you out.
It's not.
That's not what burns you out. What burns you out is all the other stuff around it.
Right.
And everything else that's like involved that's testing your integrity. That's testing your will. And
and I don't know that that's like synonymous for the mortgage industry. I think as
you think that crosses a lot of industry?
100%. So I think of ourselves, even though we work for companies, like, I think of ourselves as, or certainly me, as entrepreneurs, right? And I don't use that term loosely. Like, people are like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I got a YouTube channel. I got this, I got that. But like, I am always thinking about how to grow the business.
One of my loan officer's husbands once said that we wake up every day unemployed. And it is
100%.
And it has never left my mind.
100%.
Like, for years, I think this was probably like 7 or 8. I can't remember how long it was. It was a long time ago. And like, that is one thing that's stuck in the back of my mind that I will never forget. Like, I wake up every day unemployed.
Yeah. Start at zero every freaking day.
At zero every day.
That's why I'm like, I work with a bunch of millennials, right? And of course, I'm doing Instagram reels because that's what 46-year-old men should be doing. I get so much shit for it, but
why?
I don't know. It's funny, but they yesterday they're like, let's do this reel about why we're mortgage professionals, and my whole thing.
I think I saw it. It was good. I liked it.
My whole thing is like, we wake up every day and we start at zero. part of the reel yesterday was like, of course I'm a mortgage broker. I have all these awards that nobody gives a shit about. It's like, that's cool, dude. You used to be a big producer. What the hell does that mean?
Yeah, it doesn't.
So we know you made money. Yeah. Like, what? Why are you actually doing this shit?
Yeah.
And that's something I think is really important, no matter what business you're in, that the work that you're doing has significance. And this is just my own personal preference.
I think
I'm a big significance person. If I don't find that there's significance in it and I'm actually making a difference, and I don't want to do it. Yeah. And I guess I'm blessed because I've had financial success, ups and downs, and that's what drives me, is that significance. And I think that goes in any business.
I mean, I do it because I love helping people's lives, not just my customers' lives, but because I like helping my team, like people that have worked for me. Like, I want to make sure all these people have lives. Like,
yeah, man.
And I take pride in that.
Yeah, man.
And that's what I focus on.
Absolutely.
Like, that is the most important thing to me. And
yeah, the people that you work with have spouses and or children.
And just lives. It's a big deal. It's a lot, right?
Yeah. I mean,
it's a lot to take on.
That's an entrepreneurial
It's a lot to own as a person.
Yep.
Or a team or whatever. And it's a lot to, to take in general. But when you love something like that, it makes it easy.
Yeah, man. There's nothing that makes me happier than seeing someone that I know, especially someone that I love and have admiration for, winning.
Yeah, me too.
Like, that's the other thing. And I think that might be unique to you, certainly, and to me, and in our relationship, is we're always like, dude, how, like, I'm more excited about you winning.
I mean, we've worked for competing entities for
a while,
for 10 years,
probably 50% of our career,
50% of our career. But we've always been each other's best advocates, right?
Absolutely.
We've always been like, hey,
man, I've never had a winner shit on me trying to win.
Yeah.
I've had plenty of losers, and plenty of people that aren't doing stuff.
Well, because they're desperate and they're coming from a different place. People who are desperate do desperate things, and they come from a different place.
Well, that's also something that's important to talk about in terms of our history and our relationship. Is you and I have never been in that victim mindset.
No.
Even though we've both had some pretty fucked up shit happen. Rape, upbringing, so on and so forth.
We've both had some crazy stuff happen to us in our lives, and we've had to overcome adversity. Sure. And we of course we share that.
Yes. Which everyone has. I think the big difference is like that mindset of like, it's always going to crush. It's going to be great. Like, there's that optimism that you helped me learn a lot, because I think about it once in a while. Like, I'm like, man, where did that optimistic Ian go? Like that happy, and like, I'm getting back to that now. Yeah. And a lot of that has to do with like, when you're not at your true core, and that's what you've always done really, really well, is like, you're who you are, and you've never come off that center.
That's not necessarily true. I have my moments.
Yeah, but like, for me, as in my relationship with you, and what I look to you as, you are a lot older than me.
I'm not that much older than you.
You're sort of like that older brother that I never. No, I'm just kidding. But all joking aside, like, I've always looked to you for that, as I think it's important to understand, again, and I'm repeating myself, who you are and what's important.
Yeah.
With that said, I think that knowing that and coming from that optimism, sometimes over optimistic, but not being like, oh, well, it's not going to happen because of this. It's like, let's fucking make it happen.
It's belief.
Yeah.
You have to believe in things.
Yeah, I think it's more of like an abundance.
Well, I'm a long-term metaphysics kind of person. Like, I feel like if you have a bunch of people that are believing that something's going to take place and happen, or a goal, then you're going to achieve that.
Yeah,
goal.
Man, it's all linked together. I don't care what you call it, Buddha, God, Allah, universe, crystals.
I just believe in
downward dog, whatever.
In that, that philosophy.
100%. That's where it comes Another place that we've always always connected. Like, we know that it's going to work out the way it needs to.
All right, let's move. All right, we were going way deep in this whole.
Hey, man, I'm here for it.
I know you are. That's why you're here. But let's talk a little bit about current market conditions. Let's talk about like what's going on. I mean, because you just said, hey, sometimes I don't feel that optimistic.
Sure.
This last year was probably one of those times where you just don't feel very optimistic because the whole world's crumbling around you in the real estate business, and people aren't doing any business. And
Sure.
or there's very well, I just say they're not doing any business because we're both doing business, right?
Absolutely.
But like, there's less to go around. It's harder. Every loan is harder.
Sure.
Everything seems harder. It's hard to keep an optimistic view on things
Absolutely.
when things get really hard.
Now it's time for all you mortgage listeners. So all joking aside, I think,
mean, how do you feel about the current market conditions? What do you think?
so if you've been in the mortgage business and you're listening to this as a mortgage professional less than 20 years, when Blue and I got into this business, this was happening, right?
Yeah, we
So
started.
it's just right when the 06, 07, 08 is kind of the crash.
Yeah.
08 is, that's when they decided it was. So I would say, well, first of all, I'll answer your question is what do I think is happening? I think that we're going through a cycle.
Yeah.
I think it's, economics, and I'm not an economics major. I didn't go to school for this shit, but I've seen it enough and I've listened to enough information and absorbed enough information to understand that, this point of where we are coming into 2024 in the winter, coming into spring, that we're going to have some recessionary parts, right?
Right.
So, the guy, the economist with the bow tie, Elliot, I can't remember his last name, Eisenberg maybe, super funny, smart guy, love his style. He basically was like, listen, the housing industry's been in a slump and in a
even prior
recession.
even prior to COVID, right?
Yes, and he's just saying like this last
Well, like
year.
if COVID wouldn't have happened,
sure,
it would have naturally been a kind of a slump, and then all
I
of a
would
sudden,
guess,
yeah,
yeah.
and then rates came down super low,
Yep.
and everybody
Yep.
wanted to move to different places because they wanted to get out of the city or vice versa,
Sure.
or whatever,
Yeah.
which kind of like sparked it.
That
But
changed.
on a trend, yeah.
Yeah, so from economics, inflation, GDP, all that kind of stuff. Like I think that the industry, so I think our economy, we're gonna have some slowing. But here's the thing: like, there's so many geopolitical and all these other things that affect it. Like, I don't even think it's worth giving that much oxygen to.
Yeah.
What I think is gonna happen is we're gonna continue to go through whatever cycle we're in.
Yeah.
I do believe, and obviously I'm bullish on this. I've been on the buy and sell side 17 times at this point. I think real estate's always a good place to be, right?
Yeah.
And
I feel like we both feel that way.
yeah. And listen, dude, because we had nothing when we got into this, and we put
We
it
built our
all
whole
into
lives
real
on it.
estate. And I think that's really important. It's just like two dudes just jabba-jawing about mortgages. Like, we've done this shit, right? Like, I went from literally living in my
We
truck.
both owned a lot of properties. We've been through the cycle.
That's right. So, long story short, to answer your question directly, I believe that we're going to see another year of growth, not as strong. I believe that we're going to see competing offers in the housing industry.
I feel like the because rates are like in the 6s now, and I feel like once they go into the 5s, it's going to be another feeding frenzy.
Sure.
And there's going to be a ton of Well, and we're kind of specifically talking about our market.
Sure,
which is
Colorado.
Colorado's kind of a hotter
Absolutely,
market.
yeah.
And, but I don't know if that'll necessarily take place across the country or what that
But
looks like.
any metro
But
area.
I feel like that'll create somewhat of a spark, where it be like a temporary one for a few months or a long-lasting one. I feel like that's where we're going to end up, right? Like,
Sure.
The values are going to go up again, or at least bump up again.
They'll continue. I think there's still, like, here's the thing. The bottom's not going to fall out.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what people are like, I'm going to wait for this, that, and the other thing. So that's what I think that's going to happen in the market. With that said, in terms of what my suggestions are and what I'm going to do is I'm going to work as if,
What are you going to do, Ian?
yeah, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to continue to work just like when we started in this business.
Yeah.
And what I've always done is I'm going to continue to keep my eye on service and serving people with significance, right? That's what I like to do, for better or worse, whether I get paid or not. And I'm going to continue to work and have systems and processes and procedures for what I do every day. I'm a process person, right? Like,
Yeah.
I have to do the same shit every single day to have success, not because I like it.
I know that you work as hard, if not harder than we do, at making sure you're implementing the correct systems and a
100%,
conveyor belt
dude.
system.
100%.
Make sure your loans move through a pipeline as fast as possible.
100%.
And are clean and get, you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
smooth transactions, right?
And
So that's so let me ask you real quick.
Sure.
So what do you think is going to happen to the broker models that are doing really well right now because
Yeah.
they're just racing to the bottom and working for nothing, right? With no real conveyor belt systems, no real teams on the ground. Right?
Sure.
They're sending it off to whatever bank or
Sure.
whatever this or whatever that. Getting lower rates because they're shopping it with all these different companies. But what do you really think is going to happen to that model when we do get back into like a normalized market and things are a little bit busier?
Okay, so what I'm hearing is what's going to happen to the broker model. First, let me define what the broker model is, right?
Well, I thought I just did, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, the broker model's great right now, and it's because you have agility, and let's be honest, it's not about shopping rates, it's about changing your compensation. That's why the brokers are doing well.
Yeah, right.
It's because they're playing by a different set of rules than you and I.
Legal?
I'm not. That's not my thing to say. And here's the deal: I'm not someone who's.
I don't know. I'm
Bro,
asking you. I'm asking your opinion.
I'm not drawing inside the line, so I don't care.
Yeah.
That's their shit, right?
Yeah.
So, to be clear, the broker compensation allows you to adjust your price up and down to compete.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's be very clear on that.
And your income, right?
Your income,
which
right.
is basically
Right.
what Frank Dodd tried to get rid of when we first started.
That's right, Dodd-Frank. Yep.
I'm just
Yep.
I'm just trying to say, have we come full circle?
Well, let's not get off on a tangent here. I'm gonna define that a
All
broker
right, I'm gonna let you define
is the way it is, right?
Yeah.
With that said, do I believe that model will work when the pendulum swings the other way and we go from doing like 60, 70, 80 deals to 3, 4, 500 deals a year or transformational transactions? No, I think it's going to be a shit show.
You think so?
But that's absolutely. Think about it. Let's just be really clear.
That system's
I've got 2 dairy cows right now and 2 children, right? So let's say they're milking, which they're not. The kids are going to go out every day and they're going to milk in the morning and then milk at night, right?
Yeah.
2 kids, 2 cows, no problem.
right.
So
And you actually have 2 cows and 2 kids that milk
that's
cows.
right. Okay.
I just want to be clear.
So if I just all of a sudden we're like, hey, the pendulum swings.
Yeah.
Now we have 20 cows. I'm like, all of a sudden we don't have the systems and procedures and
Yes.
processes or manpower to put it in. Now, if I'm a broker, I know that I'm still just gonna have 2 kids. You know what I'm gonna do with all this money I'm making right now, besides being like, yeah, I'm winning deals, I'm making a ton of money. Like most brokers I know, they don't even know how many families they're helping. They know what they make. They know what their paycheck is, right? So different focus. I'm gonna build systems and procedures that like when the pendulum swings, I'm like, cool, hook that cow up to that machine over there that's gonna milk it for me. And then it's gonna sanitize, it's gonna so on and so forth.
Right.
So, but again, man, like dyslexic, not super educated, like I'm gritty, but I don't have the ability to rest on my laurels, right? Yeah. So like the brokers have all the talent right now, right? They have the ability to do this magical thing where they can just adjust their rates and compete on rates. But I don't have that ability. Yeah. Like we are static, we're the same shit all the time. We're commoditized like everyone else. Yeah. We have to absolutely be able to perform, obviously on process and procedure. With that said, I'm in the place where I need to have systems for every single thing I do, and I reinvest that. The last 2 years sounds crazy, but I've literally made no money, not much money or no money, less money because I'm keeping my team and I'm keeping my process, procedure, all the things I do.
We've done the same thing with our team. We've done the same thing.
And what I'm focusing on right now, as opposed to like winning the deal and making a bunch of money in my brokerage account, is I'm figuring out, okay, how do I continue to have great systems, processes, and procedures and not feel like I'm an assembly line? Yeah. So how do I continue to have high touch? How do I continue to make sure, like the closing I came from before I was here early on, where the guy's like, hey, did I ask too many questions? Did I this? How am I as a client? They're asking me how well they did. And I said, what I asked for is that you feel comfortable enough to ask me questions.
Yeah.
And there's consistency with that. So there's 3 things that I'm focusing on personally is communication, obviously, because I can't read for shit, so I got to talk, right? So communication, consistency, and the word I like to use is harmony, which is essentially when it's all said and done, you're happy, right? Because buying a house can suck if you're not happy at the end.
I generally usually go back to just like, obviously I'm always, because there's you like I do, you have a loan, it goes into a system, you have your team that works on it, so you're not like engaged in the process like we were when we first started.
Yes,
unless there's a problem. That comes
I've switched with that, but keep going.
Okay, so but having the, the comfort level with your clients to like always be able to reach out to you and talk through any document and having check-ins and stuff like that is I guess you could call it harmony, but I think it's just staying in touch.
Yeah.
With
And
what's going
and
on.
I think that's where our secret sauce is that every single thing we do, my business partners and I, we do everything synonymous. So we use one email and one phone number. And it's like, it's always us. And we say that up front. So I'm not like, I'm Ian Bennett, the top originator. You're working with ball. Like, it's us. It's our team.
Yeah.
And for years, a lot of folks, like, they're like, hey, man, like, the farther you get away from the loan application, the less money you're going to make. This is like, it's you're the originator. And what I found is
that what people say?
Oh yeah, I've heard that many times. What I found is folks that come to us, once they learn that they're coming, it's like coming to my house.
Yeah.
Like Jill's gonna be there, August's gonna be there, Madeline's gonna be there. You're gonna sit at my table. We're gonna have dinner together. We're gonna show you like that's that sort of like hometown feel. Like I grew up in a town of 500.
Yeah.
Like I don't really know how to do it in a way that I have to have that personal touch.
Yeah, I don't really have an extensive team like you do in that way, right? I have Adam, and anytime that anybody's dealing with Adam and I, we don't share the same email. We have separate emails, but we're always CCing each other on all our communication, so it works out. It's definitely like a hometown feel, right? Like it's like we're from a small town. Like,
Right, 100%.
Just moved out of Ned. I was in Netherlands for years.
Yeah.
Small town. So it's like
Let's be clear, you were in Ward.
I was in Ward 20 years ago. Dude.
Puerto Rico. You're a Puerto Rican refugee.
I'm not a Puerto Rican.
I love that. I love that place, by the way.
So I fully understand the idea of the hometown feel. So let's get back to kind of like, I mean, I know you have great processes. We can sit here and talk about your process.
No, we don't need to talk about that.
Right.
What your question was?
I was talking about market conditions. I was talking about brokers
Sure.
versus banks. I mean, we both work for somewhat like a banking model, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just the current market conditions and what you think, what's going to happen when this all kind of like changes? Because I feel like there's a change coming, right? And I feel like there's.
Tell me
gonna be
more.
a
What kind of
shift.
change are you talking about?
I'm just talking about a shift in the model in the business.
In the mortgage model?
No, I feel like there's a shift in the business, which is going to shift the mortgage model, right? Like if it gets really busy and you have 20 cows and you're trying to have 2 people milk.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do you think that looks like as far as, do you think like all these brokers are just that have been just like scraping the bottom and making, 5 basis points or 10 bits, whatever, 15 basis
They're
points.
making a lot more than that, but yeah.
Whatever. You know what I mean?
I think simple, man. Like economics, like the people that are forward thinking and early adopters will be able to expand with it.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's just mortgage brokers. Like there's plenty of big like savings and loan banks fired everyone. Plenty of independent mortgage banks.
There's a lot of people that have exited the business, right?
Yeah, thank God. Yeah, we love that. Absolutely. I think that the biggest issue that we have in the mortgage or more the real estate side, I'm not shitting on real estate agents, but like you can go and take a 40-hour class and you're a real estate agent, or you could have worked in real estate for 40 years. Yeah. That's the same thing.
It's that age-old thing, like you get what you pay for kind of thing, or what?
I just think that the attrition of a tough economy weeds out folks.
Right.
And you're going to have some new people that are scrappy, just like you and I, that came in on a shitty
And they're
market
going to do well.
that had no business doing anything.
And
in
I think
finance.
you and I could point a couple out that we know.
Yeah. There. Plenty.
Yeah.
With that said, I think that attrition's necessary.
Right.
But to go back to your original question,
What do you think's going to happen? What do you think's going to happen with those? Do you think they're all going to exit the broker space, or do you think they're going to?
I think a lot of businesses are like in any economic swing, no matter what the industry is, people are going to close their doors. People are going to not renew their licenses. Mortgage bankers, mortgage brokers, real estate agents, realtors, all of them. I think there's going to be attrition. And I think it's going to be lean times. And then I think there's going to be a swing and there's going to be another.
I feel like it's been a huge push for consolidation, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's just going to, on the broker side, it's going to be like more consolidation under one company.
I mean, the nice thing about a brokerage side is they basically have no overhead. So they don't really have staff. It's all outsourced. Yeah, it's like it's the local person who answers the phone and every single other piece of it.
Well, like you said before with the milk and cows analogy, that model isn't going to be able to keep up with the growing business when it gets busy again.
I think that's just general business capitalist market kind of piece. Like you have to be able to understand how to grow.
I mean, I have a lot of the same feelings you do. I'm just bouncing this off of you because I feel like it's a good thing to talk about. It's a good thing to get out there.
Sure.
And it's a good, and I feel like, I guess it makes me feel not so alone in my thoughts. I guess when I get the opinion of somebody else, like, hey, am I the only one that feels like that strategy of having no staff or running bare bones?
That's just not how I roll. You know what I mean? Like,
that's not how I roll either, right?
But that's also why we're not where we started, because we didn't want to have. At least for me, I want to have support. I want to build teams. I want to influence lives. Yeah. So. That and like, dude, I'm not a solo guy. Yeah. I'm not a solopreneur. Like when I moved out of my parents' house when I was 15, like I was like, cool, nothing's holding me down. I can go.
That goes back to what our integrity conversation and caring about the people you work with and having to be responsible for the lives. Like all that is just as important to me, and having a team and a family. Like you just talked about your team as your family.
Yeah, 100%.
It's like walking in to see Jill. It's like those are the things that are important
absolutely.
To us, right?
At the end of this week, I'm taking
solo flying person that's just like, trying to give the best deal on the block, right?
Sure. At the end of this week, I'm taking 2 days with my team and our coach, and we're gonna go into that, don't you? Yeah, man, you have to.
I love how you do that.
Think about it. Like people are like, this is where I had a conversation, and I don't know that I need to mention who it was, but I basically was like, as far as I'm concerned, I run my business the same way I run my personal lives. Yeah. Great mentor of mine once told me, he's like, you have to have a line between the two. And I said, bullshit.
That's bullshit.
Yep. And
I think the closer you are with your team, the more that you're like your family, the better off you're.
Blake Schaefer, who you know.
Yeah.
We've known him since we got in the business.
Right.
Works with me now. Yeah. Great guy. He always said, your relationships in business, he didn't say it this way, but I'm going to make it sound better than he said. Your relationships with business is just like, think about it like your spouse. And he said wife, because we're both married. He's like, if you just take it for granted and you don't recognize and appreciate and have date nights and do all those things, like that's yours to lose.
Right.
And I think that's the same with your team and with your staff. Yeah. And as soon as you look at everyone as a number, and you can't build culture without true connection. In my personal opinion is you have to have trust, you have to have respect, and you have to have a sense of safety. And I'm not talking about safe place and like all that kind of shit, but like you need to be able to depend on the people that you work with. Otherwise you're by yourself. And if you work for a large organization, which you and I have worked for before, where we felt like we were by ourselves and that the people that were running it were by themselves for themselves, that model doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah.
I think we need to get to the point where you build your teams, and so you have your entrepreneurs and then you have intrapreneurs, the folks that want to work with you to build that.
Yeah. And I think one thing, I mean, because we've done it, right? You've done it, I've done it. We have one thing I pride myself on is our managing style of being bottom up. Okay, so like
100%,
right? Like
we're all in this shit together.
We know each other so well that any idea that comes from anyone, no matter where they are at in our system,
that's how our organization is too.
It gets fully vetted, fully implemented if it's the right idea.
Yeah,
and having that trust and having that ability for your team to feel comfortable to express themselves. And to live in that space. To utilize all the minds of your organization, and all the best leaders are followers, right?
Sure.
Like I've always felt that way, and I know that you definitely feel that way.
Absolutely.
And you act on it. So it's like coming from that space and that comfort is great.
Well, yeah, and if we're me personally, if I'm asking the people that I'm serving, the customers, the clients, the members, whatever you want to call them, if I'm asking them to trust me that way, then I have to lead by example. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's simple stuff. With that said, like it's hard as fuck. Like it's not easy, It's not. But that's also.
But I do love your attention back to where we started. like you actually do a really good job. I mean, we do a pretty good job. Like we get together with our team as much as they want to. Like sometimes our team doesn't want to get together. They're like, no, we're good. Like, but you are like, what do you do it 2 or 3 times a year? You get your team out on like a little retreat.
Dude,
I don't even know. I feel like
a lot.
A few times.
It's a lot. No, it's a lot.
Yeah,
but I also like. I don't really do a whole lot of vacationing. Like my team is my family. Like we have. I don't know, man. I have this concept of the closer you are to folks, the better communication you're gonna have.
Yeah.
And the better communication you have, the easier you can get back on track. Because it's all gonna get off a track, right? You're always gonna have problems. Like the way that I articulate it to folks that have never met me before is like, my goal is to have a partnership with you. I don't care if you're a client, a business partner, a friend, but that partnership is a mutual respect that goes back and forth, right? So a two-way street. Now, we talked about education. The organization I work for was started by educators. So for me, everything starts with education. And really that's like a code word for like, hey, we're growing, right? So I want to have a two-way street of communication. That's my thing, communication. And the pavement of that street is education and growth. And then we have to have guardrails because guess what? It's going to be windy and we're going to bang off them. So transparency and vulnerability, in my opinion, are the two things that have allowed me to keep personal and business relationships on the road.
Wait, so you said something a little bit ago, and I'm going to kind of change the topic a little bit.
Okay.
So you don't take vacations. Do you do the same thing with your family, with your kids, that you do with your team? Do you like...
In terms of...
Just getting out and connecting with them and doing that stuff.
I would like to say yes.
Because you just told me that you don't take vacations. And I'm like, well, wait, you can't... And I know who you are.
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah.
I've known you for a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask the tough question. You know, and I know how much of a workaholic you are,
sure,
and how much you put into this. Is that do you feel like maybe you're neglecting some of that vacation time with your family because you're doing this with your work team, and where's that balance lie?
Great question. I'm glad that Joe was able to email that to you. I'm just kidding. No,
I just was going off of what you said.
So yeah, I mean,
but she can thank me when she.
So when we moved out of Boulder proper. My goal was to do so. Right. The good news is COVID shut down, the world's going to end happened, so I had to. Yeah. So like most things in my life, I think about it and then it kind of transpires.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. So I make those times. So like next week I'm not going to be in the office because I'm going to be in Kansas hunting with my son.
Oh, good.
But like that to me, that's not vacation. I guess technically
that's a great vacation. Are you kidding?
I guess I'm
great bonding time
for sure. But I like, and I don't want this to come across weird, but like I'm not the person who's like puts my family on a plane and we go somewhere like we're here to do whatever.
I don't think either of us are really those people. Have we ever been? Like I don't do cruises.
Yeah, I'm not into that.
Resorts.
Yeah, that's something.
Like I don't do a week at a resort.
There's nothing wrong with that.
It's not for me.
But here's the other thing, man.
I want to take my kids and do like adventurous stuff, right?
I think you and I are similar this way, where we decided that our second or third or fourth home or whatever we're going to have is in the areas that we want to go to, right? So you have a family home at the beach. I have a family home in the mountains. That's what I like to do. Yeah. Like I'll take my kids, throw in my camper, and we'll drive down to La Plata County and help our friends brand and castrate their steer. To us, that's what we like to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But or go to Wyoming or whatever. So, I mean, I think what we've done is, to answer your question, yes, we do that. I will be completely transparent and say that I didn't do that a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it was a problem. Right. But that's before I had something I need to work, bro. Like that's just who I am.
I know you need to work.
Like I'm a worker. That's who I am.
I just know, and obviously we follow each other on social media.
Sure.
We know each other's lives inside and out.
Yeah.
And when you say I don't take vacations and all I do is do this team building stuff, I'm like, whoa, wait, and that's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
Because I think I just wanted to bring it back down and understand that I know how much you're prioritizing these things, and I just gave you kudos for that and how good you are at that.
Sure.
But I also, I'm like, well, wait.
I've taken my team on vacation quite a bit, actually.
That's what I'm saying.
But it's always kind of work too. You know what I mean?
Like, I know. That's what I'm saying, and I see every time you do it, and like I said, we're friends, but I'm like,
but like when I take the last time I took my entire team to Las Vegas, I was there speaking, right? I was working. Right. And when I went to Nashville, same thing.
Right.
But we do try to take team vacations, which I do with my family, absolutely. And this year, 2024, thanks to good old Elon Musk, like I'm gonna take my Starlink or whatever it's called. I'm gonna work at my cabin, so I can crank out. My whole thing is I need to get my work done by noon. Yeah. I've always been that way. In the past,
it's a really good topic. Let's stop there for a second.
All right.
Let's talk about that.
Let's do it.
Because I was talking to somebody else the other day about this, and I'm like, I feel like my brain works really well from like 8 in the morning, or whenever I wake up, 6 in the morning.
Sure.
But I'm not actually working. But like 8 in the morning until 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and after 1, I'm kind of like, bleh.
Yeah, like I don't think it's a mystery to me. I think there's certain performance times that people have.
Yeah.
But that's all part of my process and procedure. Like I just.
Yeah, I definitely get everything done before. Like I'm definitely that's who I am.
Yeah, and different people like. I used to be pretty bullish where I'm like, man, if you don't wake up at 5 o'clock, you're never going to be successful. But, again, one of the fellas that I work a little bit with, but more of like a national coach, he's like, man, I get up whenever the fuck I want. I'm a billionaire. Yeah. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah. But does he really get up whenever he wants?
He probably wakes up 8 to 9 o'clock, but crushes the day. And his day's different. Like
I'm actually trying, like I spent my whole life up, like as soon as I had kids, I'm like up at 5 every day, 5, 6 every day, right? I mean, we used to work out at 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
For years we lifted weights together, and
I was at the gym at 5 this morning.
I bet you. I see your pictures.
41 miles from
what
my
I'm
house.
trying to do, because my kids are out of the house now, is like, can I just sleep in till 8? Like,
sure.
And it's hard for me. No matter what, I could go to bed, and I don't stay up super late. Like at somewhere
especially when I've already been up 4 hours.
Night, like if it's 10 or 10, I usually go to bed somewhere between 10 and 12 at night. But I'm still up at 6. Or you know what I mean? I can't. I'm like, I don't have to be up anymore. Like I can sleep until 8 in the morning and be okay, and like get my day started, or at least 7:30, and it's almost impossible.
Yeah, I mean this is where we differ quite a bit. Like my whole thing is.
You have little kids. Well, they're not little.
They're 10 and 11, but here's the deal.
They're in school. They're up.
But they're not
out of the house. Like
they're not getting up early anymore. Like 6 o'clock maybe. But like,
that's why I wake up
at 3:45 to 4 o'clock, and like this goes to my personality. Yeah. I always have thought that I was less than, and I didn't have the skills. Right. So if all the smart kids and all the able kids and all the talented kids,
you up earlier.
Because it takes me a long time to do shit. You know what I mean?
Until 1 in the afternoon.
And people are like, oh, like, I can't believe that you work out in Denver and you live in Longmont. It's like 41 miles one way. I'm like, yeah, but like, I know if I do this, then I'm going to do well.
Yeah.
And I think it just goes back to knowing yourself and being authentic to who you are.
Okay. So in my theory, like my mind and my theory and the way it works in my mind is like, well, I could just rotate that 6 to 8. And then I'm still working out, and then I start work at like 9. You know what I mean? And then my day, instead of me using my best hours from like 8 in the morning till noon or 1, I'm using my best hours from 9 to 2 or 3. So I'm just shifting the clock.
If you can do that, great.
You know what I mean?
I just unless it's a engaging social commitment, after 1, 2 o'clock, I'm not into it.
Granted, we did start filming and doing this at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yes, and this, like, thinking that there's one fucking person on the other end of this audio that I'm going to be able to influence to be a better person.
I don't even care.
Fires me up.
I'm doing this for you and me, buddy.
Right, but what I'm telling you is that fires me up.
I know.
Like, if in the back of my head, I'm like, there's one person. There's one person who's going to listen to this random podcast, and it's going to make a difference in their life. Like, I'm here for it.
Yeah, totally.
So, other than that, but if you're like asking me to run an amortization, I can't even say that after 18 years, an AM schedule, I'd be like, yeah, and I'm not into it. Yeah. But man, you put me on a Zoom call with someone who's like, I've never bought a home and I'm a little nervous about it. I'm fired.
I get excited too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know that feeling.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've gone about an hour, Ian. I have one more topic here.
Let's roll.
You want to keep going?
Yeah.
All right. What do you think the best advice in this market is for home buyers? New and existing.
New and existing.
New
So
home
what's the
buyers?
best? What's my
I'm not saying it
advice
has to be one thing. I'm just saying, what do you think is like? What are you telling your clients right
for existing homeowners?
now? There you go.
Dude, I'm so bullish on this. I'm like, I'm always buying real
That's
estate.
okay. You're allowed to be bullish.
So
You're allowed to. This is your
if
opinion.
let's go back. If you don't own a home and you have the ability to buy a home,
You should buy a house.
buy a house.
Of course.
I'm not saying everyone should buy a house. Don't miss out. Rates are this, blah, blah, blah. But like, it's very, very, very clear and cliche is that you don't start the appreciation process until you purchase the home.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you pay for the house or what the interest rate is. Yes, absolutely. If there's some like magical thing that everyone can time in the market, that's not my deal, man.
Yeah.
Like I've gotten from barely making a truck payment to having 7-figure income from real estate investments alone
Yeah.
by going.
Yeah.
So my personal opinion is if you're renting, there's nothing beneficial.
Age-old golden advice that'll never go back.
No, it doesn't go. It doesn't. And I'm only speaking from my personal experience.
Living and doing a lot of business in a small town like I did for a long time, and running into the people year after year after year, and some of my clients, and being in this business for so long, like there's people I've did loans for 15 years ago that are still my friends that are like, you changed my life. Like
100%.
my life is completely different because you helped me get this loan.
Yeah.
And this
So if you're not a non-homeowner,
and this is not, I'm not talking about like, we could talk about our personal experience because we own multiple properties. We do these, we've worked really hard our whole lives to have this, but I'm just talking about one person buying one house,
absolutely,
and holding on to it for 10 or 15 years,
100%.
And they're like, all of a sudden they have all this money that they would have never had.
The average net worth of a homeowner is something like $100,000.
Yeah. I bet you have charts. I bet you have tons of charts.
I do, for sure. And I'll do an Instagram video that my buddy Billy will give me a hard time about.
I saw that video. It was great.
He's such a dick. But he's a crusher mortgage guy. 500 transactions a year. Zero social media. The complete opposite of me.
Right.
Love him to death. With that said, Billy Campbell, love you. With that said, if you don't own a home and you have the ability to, buy one. If you don't have the ability to, figure out how to.
Yeah.
That's simple. If you're
and then how do you figure out how to do that?
Well, you find
meet with one of us.
No, but you find people who have done it. You find trusted advisors, coaches, mentors.
Trusted advisors.
You could call me.
I think the biggest hurdle for people that don't own houses is just understanding all they have to do is go talk to somebody.
The lack of education.
Right? Yeah. All they have to do is go talk to somebody and get educated.
Absolutely.
And then it's all of a sudden, because when
it's not that hard.
They don't feel like they even could qualify for a loan.
Yep, that's right.
And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I could buy a house? You're like, yeah, you can buy a house.
So to answer your question, if you don't own a house, start asking questions. Yes. If you own a house, start asking questions. Like, there's some people who are not fit to own more than one home. And that's okay.
That's fair. But you should at least own your own house.
For sure.
Yeah.
But if I own a house now and I have a good interest rate and I love the neighborhood and da-da-da-da-da-da, keep looking. Keep educating yourself. Keep asking questions. There are certain people that absolutely should not move. There's also people who have the ability to move. It's the same advice for both.
Yeah.
If you're interested in growing and not being stagnant and complacent, ask questions and get more education. That's it. There's no if your interest rate's this, do this, and if the market does that. Like, my personal bias and why you and I are both sitting here is because we continue to ask questions and be curious.
Yeah, we never stop.
Be curious.
Yeah.
Had you told me, dude, come on. When you're driving around your little shitty, what I call it, your mobile ashtray, back in the day when you had
a Subaru?
It was a shithole. And I was driving some other kind of shithole. And neither one of us had a pot to piss in and a window to throw it out of. But we knew that if we kept growing and kept learning that we could, I guarantee your freaking $200,000 Tesla is a freaking pit too. It's like people, I washed my car twice today. Like, some people are different.
My car is super clean, for the record.
Okay, that's great. I appreciate that.
I will show you after this podcast.
For the record, his car is clean. With that said, I just think you have to be curious. You have to ask questions. You have to think about outside of Dan McCarthy, who's one of my best mentors, my wife's father.
Yeah, I know who that is.
traveled around the world helping special needs. He's one of the directors of Special Olympics, right?
Yeah, Special Olympics.
He always told me, he's like, he would put his hands next to his eyes like blinders, like a horse.
Yeah.
Like horse and carriage, because he's that old.
Right.
And he says, most people look like this. So my hands are next to my face and I can't see to the side. He said, you got to look at life like this.
Yeah.
You have to bring your hands past your ears so you can see what's going on. So you have a bigger area of vision.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say to new home buyers, non-home buyers, existing.
I love it. It's good. It's good. It's gold. Well, Ian, I want to thank you for being on my first podcast. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, man.
I think it went pretty well. I'm pretty excited. It's nice to always talk to you in general because we talk every once in a while. Or
Sure.
We talk a lot. And I always love having conversations with you, and I'm glad that we could sit down and record this one.
I appreciate that, man. And I want to thank you for being the inaugural. But also I want to thank you for always being able to see, this is just my personal experience.
Yeah.
Being able to see things in me that I didn't necessarily see.
Yeah.
And that's really helped me a lot. And I think that goes a long way. And I think anyone that's listening to that, I think that's a trait that most people don't have.
Appreciate it.
And I think as a mortgage lender, as a coworker, as the dad of my college roommate, whatever, like I think that's something admirable that anyone that gets the chance to know you will experience that.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, you know it goes both ways. You know, we both idolize each other. I mean, come on.
I mean, I don't know that.
Yes, you do.
Well, thank you.
That I idolize you.
Well, thank you. They're very nice.
And I've told you that before. You must have forgotten.
I didn't forget that, but I do. I do know that I've got a ton of love for you, man, and you've made a big impact on my life, and I hope that you're making a big impact on other people's lives that are decide to tune into your channel.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I think this is going to actually get some traction.
And how does that work? Like this is going to be on a platform, so people need to subscribe, they need to like, they need to share it
on YouTube.
Okay, cool. So if you're seeing this on YouTube, please subscribe below and send it to someone. Seriously,
I'll put some of that stuff in there, and
it's word of mouth though, dude.
Yeah,
the way we've built our business. If you're listening to this and it made a difference in your life, send it to someone. Send it to someone that might make a difference in their life.
I appreciate your groundwork right there.
Well, dude, that's the whole point of what we've done in life, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I would hope that it would just speak for itself, and people would naturally be like, "This is amazing. You need to share."
Yeah, sometimes people need to be reminded.
Yeah, I love that.
Like, please and thank you.
Thank you.
Open the door for someone.
You're the man.
All right, cheers.
Yeah, cheers.